Howdy, you freaking legends. What are you doing here on this Nick Storm video and/or podcast if you're listening on Spotify? But what are you doing here? Oh, you wanna hear and see an interview I did with Steve Ozer from Mattel? Oh, well, that's exactly what you're gonna freaking get. I'll be honest, this is a great talk, such a great interview. I'm so glad Steve was able to sit down and talk to me about a bunch of Mattel stuff, a bunch of figure stuff in general. And funny enough, Steve Ozer was actually one of my goals in 2021 to get on this podcast and get on this interview. And so we've achieved that, and I've got a lot of other goals. Jeremy Padawa, one is something that comes to mind. He's a great person. You know, I really want to talk to him a lot about his involvement with Jax and now with AEW and stuff like that. My Damn Toys, Trey, if you're listening, that's you, buddy, calling out your name. But yeah, let me know if you guys want anyone as a guest. You know, I can get those two on as a guest. But also let them know on social media that the icon sent you. And without further ado, here is my chat with Steve Ozer from Mattel. Hope you enjoy. G'day, ladies and gents. It is Nick Storm, the Australian icon. And oh boy, howdy, I have a very special guest with me today. You guys know him. He is the Global Brand Marketing Manager at Mattel. He's most known for his work with the WWE and Mattel partnership, the mastermind behind the Ultimate Editions, Steve Ozer. Steve, how are you? Did I just give you that name now? Is that...
What an intro. I'll take it.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm great. I'm so glad, you came on here to talk a little bit about figures, a little bit about wrestling, everything like that. I'm glad you're here, man. Thanks for doing this.
Very excited. Always happy to talk action figures, talk WWE, and everything in between.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first off, let's get into it. So there's a bunch of topics to jump into. I feel like it's been crazy with the WWE and Mattel partnership over the past few months with New Gen and now Ringside Fest and all the reveals that have been happening there. So we got a bunch to jump into with that. But first I want to start off with, when did you first start watching wrestling? What's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory of an actual match, I think, is Hulk Hogan versus Killer Khan.
Oh my God, yeah.
So there was a house show. So my dad used to have one of those huge satellite dishes that would, pick up stations from around the country. And at that time, WWE was kind of, buying up the territories pretty much, or putting them out of business, however you want to put it, bringing in talent from territories all around the world, really. So they were doing local TV in those markets, like their house shows. They were broadcasting house shows. And in some cases, they were doing, specific syndicated shows that were catered towards it. So, having that dish, I could see house shows from across the country, which was super cool. And the main event was Hulk versus Killer Khan, and Killer Khan sprayed. And I'll never forget, Hogan had his hands taped up for the match. Hogan blocked the mist with the hand tape, and the mist was all over the hand, and he rubbed the hand into the eyes of Killer Khan and blinded him. So that's my first match memory. And then, of course, getting into Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, the cartoon, and then discovering, the syndicated shows, Wrestling Challenge and Superstars. And I remember a match with Harley Race versus the Jobber very vividly. So yeah, very, very early days watching WWE with my dad and going to shows at the old Philadelphia Spectrum. So I can say that I'm a lifelong fan who's never fallen off the wagon of WWE and pro wrestling.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So did you start collecting wrestling figures as well, around that time, or have you?
Yeah, my first figures were the old LJN figures for back in the day, of course. And I had some of the weird bootlegs. I had a small, it was Masters of the Universe style, but they were smaller, of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. So, there were a lot of Motu offshoots back then of wrestlers and various things. But really, LJNs had the special place in my heart. And I collected pretty deeply with LJNs, and then eventually transitioned into the Hasbro figures, of course.
Yeah. Do you still have some of those LJNs? Are they not looking mint, or are they mint?
I'm looking down because I had the box here recently, but I think I moved it. But I have my original LJNs. They're in terrible condition. But I mean, that's okay. I think almost all LJNs are in bad condition.
Loved,
Yeah. They were very loved and meant to be played with and designed for bashing. I know a lot of kids like to bash figures. And made specifically for that. So yeah, I do still have them.
Yeah, great. Well, like you said, you've been like a kind of lifelong wrestling fan. So when did this job at Mattel first like present itself to you, and how was it just like, oh, it's a complete no-brainer. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I mean, it's something that I really was focused on getting to and achieving. I had been a retail manager and I had gone to school for computer science, and computer science wasn't really something for me that I wanted to do lifelong. So I went back to school and I went to school for business with the goal of, I mean, the pie in the sky goal would be to work on this brand at Mattel. But I mean, I would have been happy just, doing something similar, another entertainment brand, another toy company, something like that. But I mean, this would have been the ultimate goal. So really I focused on, what it would take to make something like this happen. And fortunately for me, being a fan of these things, I wasn't just a fan of like the entertainment involved in WWE or the other things that I like, superheroes and comic books and the whole nine yards, everything. It's like anytime I like something, I wanted to know everything about how it worked,
Oh
like
yeah,
the
I'm
inner
like that as well.
workings,
Yeah, yeah.
the politics of the business and how the business works itself, like all that stuff. So I always tried to absorb as much as I could in every aspect. So I did that with the toy industry, did that with WWE, obviously, did that with all these various businesses. So I was just trying to learn as much as I could from the outside, also finishing school, and started doing various marketing jobs. I worked for the Coca-Cola company and did marketing for various brands for them. And then I was networking with anybody I could within the toy industry. Who knows where I could have landed up, but eventually connected with Dave Jackson, who wound up working most recently for Jazzwares on the AEW line. But he was at Mattel and he helped me secure an interview. And I came into Mattel as he was leaving. So it was pretty cool how it all came together. A lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice. I moved across the country to get to this part of the country where there were opportunities like this, whether it was Mattel or another entertainment company, and did everything I could. And fortunately for me, it came together, and I got this opportunity, and I've never looked back.
That's great, and you're doing great things as well with Mattel. I'm sure everyone's like very happy that you're a part of the community, part of the whole team in general. You're a very like kind of outspoken guy. Love seeing you in the reveals as much as anyone else. But speaking of reveals, there's something I think happened a couple of weeks ago. Do you know what it was, Steve? By any chance?
I mean, things are happening every day. You're gonna have to give me a hint. We have Elite Squad reveals. We have Ringside Fest. We have tons of stuff happening at all times. I just filmed the next Elite Squad video yesterday, actually, or was it today? I don't even know anymore. I just filmed the latest Elite Squad video. So yes, please remind me if you have something specific in mind. Clue me in.
I mean, you can give us a taste here. It's okay of the new Elite Squad. I'm just kidding. Don't want you to lose your job. As much as we want the reveals, we'll stay put, stay patient for that. But more specifically, Ringside Fest, which was a couple weeks ago, there have been like a ton of reveals. We saw a ton of cool new figures coming out, ones that I'm super excited about. So kicking it off, I want to talk about the WrestleMania 38 basics. Because there was something there that really caught my eye about one of those basics, and that was the Hulk Hogan. Now, the Hulk Hogan showed the old arm articulation that we saw with basics and first started seeing with elites when, that was first, coming into fruition as well. Is this the plan going forward with basics to have that old articulation back, or is it just kind of one-off with certain characters?
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be a regular thing. We do try to get it in when we can, and if it makes sense. Like if you remember, the WrestleMania ring cart figures had the older basic articulation as well. For Hulk specifically, he had a specific torso with the molded T-shirt. And it just so happened all his parts work together perfectly, right? Like why broke what or why change what isn't broken. So we went with the original formula for that figure, and original part choices for him. And it also helps that he's a low deco figure, right? It's not like he has crazy detail all over his trunks or boots or anything. So that all helps with cost, and some of that cost was able to go to his articulation. But it'll be a select thing. Like when we can make it happen, we'll try to make it happen. But really, basics as they are now currently are probably here to stay. But we are trying to incorporate swappable heads across all elites and all basics. So that is a cool way that we'll be plussing up basics. It'll be a slow rollout, but the plan eventually is to have all basics and elites and ultimates, of course, with swappable heads.
That's great, because I as well as a lot of people in the community, we used to see a really cool new basic coming out. We'd use it for like part swaps and stuff like that. So the fact that the interchangeable heads aren't going on just the elites but also the basics, I think is a really great move, really smart move. So I'm very happy with that. Another reveal we saw as well is the Ringside exclusive Tommaso Ciampa, which I'm very excited about. And it had sort of, I'd say like a sort of smaller build, like smaller torso. I don't know how to call that in general. Maybe the 4-pack torso, if we will. And a lot of I saw online a lot of people were saying, oh well, they've made him with the 6-pack torso or whatever in the past. What's happening here? And you guys listened to them and changed the torso on that. So is that kind of oh yeah, we have to do this anyway? Because I feel like, with the feedback from the community as well, if something's early into production like that, integrate it however you can, make everyone happy.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's things like that aren't always as straightforward as one may think, right? In some instances, it might be Bill did call out a different type of a torso when he submitted everything to our partners in Asia. And there was you're talking about steel tools, massive steel tools, right? And they're looking for the steel tool, and they'll produce something, or they'll do a prototype with the wrong steel tool, and things get rolling and things get approved with wrong parts. There's a lot that can happen, right? That can change the outcome of a figure from what it was originally intended. In this case, we were able to get licensor approval for the change. We were able to make those changes happen with China in time. So we do hear the feedback. We do catch things ourselves. Sometimes by the time you see a photo, we're already in the process of making a change happen. Like the Kane elbow incident recently. The steps to correct that were already in motion by the time people started receiving that figure. So we listen, of course, and we do what we can to change things when we can. It's not always possible, but of course I'm very active, and I'm on social media, and I'm on the forums, and I'm listening to what's going on, and we're trying to catch these things ourselves as well. So we can't always fix everything or change everything, or something just turns out as we didn't intend, or maybe there's a purposeful choice that Bill or another designer might make, and there's a reason for it, a real reason for it. But long story short, we do listen and we do what we can. It's just a complicated business.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Another kind of thing that I saw, it's more of a minor change than the Tommaso Ciampa, but the Elite 91 Hogan, we saw the renders of it, and it didn't have a knee brace, and I was kind of like, oh, what's happening there? But we saw recently on the Ringside Fest reveals that Bill showed I think it was like a prototype maybe, and it had the knee brace on it as well. And you were actually
up here.
Yeah, let's see.
I think yeah.
Enhance editing. Enhance. It's okay. We'll do that in post. Just completely zoom in on it. But was that kind of like, oh yeah, we got to do this,
So that was one where it was either me or Rob who caught the knee brace, I think. I think that was a submission, and it was just missed initially. And in the email where it was submitted, I think one of us just replied like right away, like missing the knee pad, add the knee pad. So that was like caught right away, right? But by the time, everything is in motion, that render's created, and we'll show you guys that stuff, sometimes almost immediately. So there was no time to correct that render ahead of time. But yeah, that was caught early on. That was one of the cases where something was caught before it even became public.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you were actually there at that SummerSlam as well, that Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
It's from Hulk and Sean. Do you have any stories from that match, seeing it in person?
Well, first of all, let me say that, I think I've told this story. That was the only time I went to wrestling with my mom. Mm-hmm. And she was here last week. And I showed her the figure, right? This one up here. And I was like, do you remember this? She has no recollection of any matches, of Hulk Hogan, nothing. She knows she went to wrestling with me, but I'm like, well, at least it's special to me.
Yeah.
So it's cool we get to do these things. And, I thought I was giving my mom a little, a line, but she has no idea. So it's okay. But as far as the match itself, I was living in Florida at the time, and I drove up to the Northeast to see that. And big Hulk Hogan fan as a kid, and I knew that his time in ring was definitely winding down. His appearances were getting fewer and further between at that point, so I wanted to see what could be his last hurrah, and it's Shawn Michaels on top of it, right? Like possibly one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. And the match itself, wild. Shawn, of course, very exaggerated in his selling, but I think just being there and having Hulk come out, and it's really, to me, when you get to see legendary wrestlers like one more time, it's getting to experience, like, not so much the in-ring work, right? Because we have a lot of that already. We have Peacock and WWE Network internationally and YouTube and stuff, so we could watch these guys in their prime. It's getting like these personas, one more time. It was Hulk making his entrance, the giant American flag dropping down, and him, hitting his signature poses in front of it for his entrance, and doing the Hulk Hogan things, like seeing that one more time and reacting with the crowd to everything. I think, to me, that's what's important when we see these guys one more time, is just getting a taste of that character one more time. And we have the young guys for work rate and stuff like that, right? And it's not to say Hulk didn't work hard, or veterans don't work hard. Of course they do. But if we want to see, like, a 5-star match, like we have young talent to do that. I wanted to see Hulk Hogan pose, and I wanted to see him do the points and the comeback and all that stuff. So I got my money's worth that night.
Yeah, it sounds like you did. And a thing with that Hulk Hogan as well is I grew up watching WWE around that time of Hogan. So, like, with those long tights, and they're like tie-dyed red and yellow as well, So I grew up watching it. So I'm so excited to get this figure. Maybe you have to show your mum the network and re-show her.
Yeah, I'll force her to sit through it one more time.
Yeah, but another one from the reveals as well. Same line as well is Rob Van Dam. So he recently got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and was that kind of a no-brainer to fast track a Rob Van Dam into an Elite series?
As soon as we got confirmation that we could do Rob again, we pounced, and it was determining where go. That was more the issue, because we obviously have several places where he would make sense, right? Whether it's Legends or one of our other lines. So we eventually settled on this particular Elite wave, and there's so many gear choices to choose from, so many form factors. There's the Superstars form factor, there's retros, so there's a lot to do with Rob Van Dam, between gear and form factor. So I mean, it's a blessing to have somebody like him, ultra popular, someone you can do a lot of times that people aren't going to really get tired of seeing repeats of. I want as many Rob Van Dams as we possibly can get to.
Yeah, me too. I believe the first and last Elite of Rob Van Dam was Elite 27 in 2014, and that was one of my most sought after figures. So once I got that, I was like, great, it's in my collection. We get we get news of Rob Van Dam being in a new Elite series now, like, completely blows my mind. I'm so glad that that's into fruition. I can't wait for all the different RVDs we get in the future. Maybe an Ultimate Edition. Wink, wink. You can't really see me winking, but wink, wink.
I hope so. That line is my baby. So, yeah. and RVD is super popular, and obviously collector requested. So I think he would eventually make sense there. And I do want to address, like, I've seen a lot of comments of the last time RVD was available to Mattel. Different time, he was available for such a short period of time, and I just don't think maybe the team at the time was managing timeframes as closely now. So now we know our time frame that we have RVD currently. Could go longer, right? But we know our current time frame, and we'll maximize the usage of him. And I think you're seeing that with Hulk as well. We're really making the most of the time we have with Hulk here, because it could go on indefinitely, or it could end at the end of that time frame. So we're going to give you guys as much as we can in the meantime.
Yeah, there are a lot of RVD gears to choose from. If you had your way, what would be your ideal like RVD attire to put in Elite Wave? What's your like an attire to you that stands out?
I would love, ECW One Night Stand for one.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's historically significant, of course, and the show was, his match was incredible, and the vibe in the venue was incredible. And I would also like to try to get out an earlier ECW era Rob Van Dam, before the gear was as complex. There's just like a charm to that older gear, and he told some of these stories during the Ringside Fest YouTube video. But that artist improved greatly over time. But the older gear has a lot of charm to it as well. So I think I was looking. There was one. I think there was a dragon, just a single dragon, like wrapped around him, and not much else going on. That was pretty cool. But there's a lot of like older, simpler gear to choose from as well, and I'd like to at least get one of those out.
Mm. That kind of this isn't on my notes, but this just came to me. Would there be like, is there a thought of maybe like an ECW strong line? Like there's been like NXT lines in the past, like NXT elites. Would there be a thing with ECW elites, or would you just integrate them with the normal elite collection?
I mean, right now, obviously we'll just integrate, but it
Yeah.
just depends on opportunity, right? Like, every year there's like a special line at Walmart. Like, this year is the WWE Hollywood figures. Who knows what that will be later, right? So those things cycle in and out, and there's new opportunities every year to explore something different. There's other lines that we want to try to keep around as long as possible, like Ultimates and Legends. So when these opportunities arise, something as strong and as loved as ECW of course floats to the top of our list of a possibility. So no plans, but never say with something as beloved as ECW.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's wrapping up the Ringside Fest kind of side of it. What's your favorite from the reveals of Ringside Fest?
I mean, the Hulk was very special, of
Yeah.
course, that figure. The Ultimate Edition, I mean, that's another Hulk Hogan figure, but I think the Mr. T specifically, the Hulk
Yeah.
figure is great. I think, I haven't seen anything physical yet, but at least the renders, it's hitting like that masterpiece territory for a Hulk figure.
That
But
straight
Mr.
face
T,
scan on Mr.
yep,
T is incredible. I love it.
Mr. T is the Mr. T everybody wanted, right? And we knew that this was coming all along, right? We wanted to do something at Comic-Con. Comic-Con is an exclusive item. If somebody misses that and missed the WrestleMania 1 Mr. T, they would be very upset, right? So we wanted like a mainline widespread type of a release. So that T is going into Ultimates here. So I'm really excited to have that Mr. T figure come out.
Yeah.
And the Rob Van Dam, right? Obviously, we talked about it already, but that's somebody who we've been trying to get back into the line for the longest time. It was really important to reveal and be seen because those new signings are a lot of work on our part. We work with WWE really closely, so it's great to finally get to show you guys all of our hard work come to life in a figure. And for me, like the Sammy figure with the Sammy award
Oh my
is
god,
super cool
that's so cool. Yeah, yeah.
because it's like a figure of an action figure basically because it was just a painted gold Sami Zayn figure. So that was a lot of fun, and the way that he revealed it, I believe it was the day before via the Elite Squad video, was really fun, like fully in character and everything. So Sammy was great, and Sammy delivered during that Elite Squad video.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, well great to get into that as well. So yeah, that's the Ringside Fest portion. Um so I want to get into kind of like maybe a more serious topic, I guess, than the reveals, but um the thing with talent is contracts expire, people get released, talent gets released and stuff like that. It's always horrible news. But it's also the case with sometimes there's an elite coming out and then a talent gets released. What's sort of the game plan when those releases happen? Do you have figures on standby to push into that wave, or what kind of happens with that? What's the process?
It really depends on the circumstances. Well, there are frames built in to account for releases or someone suddenly leaving the company or whatever. So you do see instances of figures still coming out regardless, because there are plans in place from a contract standpoint to account for that. If we do have to remove somebody, depending on timing, we may have to just do a straightforward reuse slash repaint type of a figure, or we can rescue a figure that may have been lost. And I think during at least my time here, we've done a good job of rescuing figures like the Harley race figure, the Jake the Snake figure, a lot of those flashbacks. There are a lot of figures that kind of got lost for various reasons that we were able to bring back. And it was because of opportunities like, right? Like there were opportunities that came about where we needed something quickly, or someone was released and we could plug in existing tooling and still present something fresh to you guys. So really it's like timing is key. If there's no time to tool something, we'll just pull something, from existing tooling and try to do a compelling repaint of it, which I mean, without going into details on the WrestleMania elites, that lineup originally was a lot different when we first presented it to WWE for approval. And just due to the nature of the business, it eventually morphed into what you see now, which is also a lot of reuse tooling in that wave.
Well, great. Yeah, it's good to have like those kind of figures as replacement as well. I just completely stand by. So something that blew the internet by storm, pardon the pun, by storm, maybe a few months ago was a crowd-funded new gen Ultimate Edition arena ring playset, everything. Which completely blew me away. It blew the whole figure community away. I want to talk kind of about the new gen arena. How did that kind of idea come into fruition as well?
So we've been trying to do something crowdfunded for the longest time, going back to when we showed you the full size, more modern entrance stage at Access and Comic-Con a few years ago. That was really trying to gauge some interest in what you collectors thought of a large item like that, get a gauge of what you thought about price points, the whole 9 yards. So we did a lot of exploration based on that. At the same time, Mattel was making strides in a direct-to-consumer platform, which eventually became Mattel Creations. So between our research and doing our due diligence and what Mattel was doing, everything came together. There was a right platform now to do it with MattelCreations.com. And now we just needed to finesse what the first item would be out of the gate. That entrance stage, first of all, the one we showed before, is now very dated, right? So we couldn't do that anymore. Plus, it was incredibly expensive, and the tooling was very, very expensive. So we wanted to do something a little bit more reasonable and straightforward, something that was kind of widely recognized by people. And after lots of meetings and discussions, we eventually aligned on that neon entrance with a properly scaled ring, both of which were highly requested ahead of us announcing. So now thankfully the community came together in a huge way and made it a success. So now we have a brand new, fully tooled, properly scaled ring. And everyone who backed that campaign is going to get that really awesome entrance, neon entrance.
Yeah, it's exciting as well because you have that whole ring, you have the entrance, and you also have, if you got it on the early bird, you got the 3 Ultimate Edition figures that come along with it. Doink the Clown, you have Diesel, and also that Macho Man Randy Savage, which I'm very excited for. Were these picks kind of like instantly you knew, oh yeah, let's do Diesel, let's do Doink, or let's do Macho Man? How did these how did these characters come into your mind when it comes to getting these Ultimate Editions in this?
Yeah, so when we create anything, whether it's a lineup or an offering with multiple figures, you want to kind of have some balance there, right? You want to have your like heavy hitter guys, your go-to guys, and that would be obviously Randy and Diesel, your main event level talent, and then you want to do something that's a little more fancy, right? And that was a great opportunity to re-explore Doink the Clown. Again, Doink wasn't available to us for a while, so he was off, and we knew that he was once again available. So we wanted to take advantage of this slot and give something special to collectors, and something that we couldn't accomplish outside of what we would usually do. Like Doink wouldn't get a mainline Ultimate Edition figure, right? That kind of sticks to your main event players. But this was a great opportunity to get someone who would be a great Ultimate figure, right? And it was the perfect opportunity to make it happen here. So you have it's anchored in your heavy hitters like Diesel and Macho Man, and then we rounded out with a nice fan favorite collector demanded Doink.
Yeah, that's great as well because I think there hasn't been many doinks. So yeah, the fact because like the new gen arena is sort of like it's a big community, but it's also like a pretty niche community. I feel like so if you put doink in there, obviously it's gonna sell as well if you're getting the new gen arena in the first place, which is really smart. So speaking of like ultimate editions as well, did you come up with ultimate editions? Was that your is this your baby?
Yeah, so Ultimate Edition, it's something that I created along with Bill McKenna, and it was kind of born out of really we had entrance grates at the time, right? Prices were increasing, and entrance grates suddenly became a $30 item, and I think us internally and consumers were not really viewing that as $30 worth of value. It essentially became the entrance base, which was the bulk of the cost, along with an elite figure, and in the case of like that Kurt Angle, it was just his medals and as an accessory. And it just to me didn't look like $30 worth of value anymore. Same thing for Bill, very strongly felt that way. So we wanted to create something that felt like $30 worth of value, that was $30 worth of value, that catered towards modern collectors, and that steered us in the direction of action figure photography and people who like to display their figures like fully posed out, things of that nature. So we explored, relevant accessories like a figure with, all kinds of accessories specific to that character. And just like it kept evolving until you get what you see now, which was, modern articulation with the butterfly shoulders and the toe articulation and the new ab crunch. Swappable heads, swappable hands, and what was really important to us was fully posable entrance gear. So a lot of the entrance gear in the past was just like you were just stuck in whatever pose the gear was molded in, right? Yeah. So we wanted to make sure that if you're doing your action figure photography, you can strike all those signature poses, and do your photography as you would desire. So I think the end result was something that people in social media and action figure photography community really wanted. And the line, of course, has really taken off. So I think people have really embraced the line. I'm really happy about that. I know what it's all about. They see the possibilities of the line, the possibilities of play, our own version of play as adults or older collectors. But really happy with where the line is right now and how it's evolved.
Yeah, yeah, those entrance codes, they've always been great sculpting on those entrance coats or something that's like, leather, but it just, on the elites keeps them in place. So, yeah, that's I love Ultimate Editions. They're like your baby as much as they're mine. Like I love them so much. But when you first were getting the ideas of the Ultimates, were there any kind of worries? Oh, maybe this won't sell. Were there any stresses? Maybe we can't get the right tooling for this. Like, what was challenging about it?
I will say our VP of design at the time was very supportive and pushed us a little as far as being able to create something new and special. So the tooling was a little bit less of a concern. Then I went into the whole thought process with. So with his support, we were able to push the limits of tooling and get those new bodies and whatnot there. Success, I mean, I was fairly confident with the desire for something like that, right? Because if you look at like comp products, you're looking at like some of those Japanese import figures that are like $60 to $110, $120 that are similar, and it's a hyper articulated figure with swappable hands and swappable heads. So for $30, it felt like this was a great value, and it did take a little time for like a true explosion in popularity of the line. But I think out of the gate, the people who were supposed to get it, got it. And else eventually jumped on board. It just took a little bit of time and getting used to something new and something different.
Yeah, and speaking of Ultimates, one that I'm really excited about is the D-Generation X Triple H Amazon exclusive. That's coming, I think, maybe early next year, who knows. But one as well that comes to mind is one I got recently, which is the Jeff Hardy Amazon exclusive Ultimate Edition. But a lot of people couldn't get their Jeff Hardys on time. There was something messing with the distributor, I guess. Um, what was can you kind of brief what was happening with all that and how you guys came to the conclusion how to fix it and et cetera and stuff like that?
So we originally intended Jeff and Hulk to have pre-order in Comic-Con, like go live roughly around the time of the panel. It didn't work out, right? There's a lot of coordinating with a lot of different people going on and multiple retailers. That wasn't the only pre-sale that was scheduled to happen. And, it just they didn't go live when they were supposed to. I believe they may have went up earlier and then came down and then gone up and down again several times thereafter. So, we really just tried to communicate with our partners who handle Amazon and try to get to a solution. And eventually we were able to come to an agreement to do another production run of those figures, which is why you had that pre-order, I believe, in August for those figures once again. It can be complicated sometimes, it's not me and Bill and the rest of the Mattel team sitting in a room and hitting the button for go for a pre-order. There's a lot of coordinating that goes on and people who have lots of responsibilities, right? I mean, think of how huge Amazon is, and then think of, I love WWE. It's a huge part of my life and important to me. But when you think about everything that is Amazon and everything that they carry, and then what WWE, two WWE figures, you can see how maybe sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. And unfortunately, they did at that time. But I will say, based on those learnings and the conversations, I think the Ultimate Warrior and Triple H pre-orders went a lot smoother. Warrior was available for a really long time, and Triple H still has some inventory. So I think, there were some growing pains, but it got to a good place in the end for the next two figures. And I think at least with the case of Hulk, I think a lot more people were able to acquire him that really wanted him, and to a lesser extent, Jeff as well.
Great, yeah, great news. Glad you guys are doing more like runs of the Jeff and Hulk for people who missed it. That's fantastic. I've got something here. I don't know when I wrote this, but it says Nick Storm figure when. So can you touch on any of that? I don't want to leak anything. Maybe it's in the Elite Squad reveals. Who know? But when's the Nick Storm Elite coming?
Maybe it's a fan vote, right? It's a
Yeah.
fan vote, and you have to choose your favorite social media or internet personality.
I mean, I was getting comments because I did a thing swipe up if you have any questions for Steve, and a few people actually said, "Are they going to be like YouTube lines?" So how kind of possible is that?
I mean, for actual non WWE personalities, I don't know. I have been trying to find ways to get more referees out, but and other backstage personalities. Maybe that's a way. Maybe there's a way to get other people's heads on referee bodies or something. So
Yeah.
never say never. It seems unlikely, but never say never.
Nick Storm, elite referee, elite 100. Look out for it. Just kidding.
Four per case.
I'm getting all of them. Don't bother. I'm getting all of them. But apart from Mattel and everything like that, what are some other lines that you do enjoy collecting?
Marvel Legends, Star Wars The Black Series, Masters of the Universe. I was a big Masters Classics fan when that was available on Matty Collector, and now I pick up the Origins and Masterverse figures. Thundercats, a lot of Super 7 figures. Thundercats, they're doing Silverhawks. G.I. Joe. I mean, I could probably list just about anything. I was a child of the 80s. So, that was like the big boom of action figure properties. And of course, going into the 90s with Ninja Turtles and stuff. So, I love a little bit of everything, and I probably collect too much, but it is what it is. It helps me. It helps me in my day-to-day, work. I know, oh, well, another company did this style figure. So maybe we can try that, or It's very helpful. It's very helpful to have this, kind of encyclopedia of toy knowledge and toys in hand for me to pull from and check out and show on camera now that we're doing this virtually.
That's cool. So do you grab like kind of influence and inspirations from other lines when it comes to maybe articulation or, oh, this comes with this. Maybe we can try doing like that with the WWE line.
Oh, absolutely, right? That's the benefit of buying other lines is you get to see that stuff firsthand and see the innovations that are happening. Back way back when the Elite line started, it was pretty much, state of the art at the time. Of course, Marvel Legends Toy Biz went wild with articulation, right?
Yeah.
But as far as like industry standard went, Elites were pretty standard. But there's lots of things that swappable parts, and you see the competition doing the same thing. I can't say that they took from us, but I was like, well, it's similar to what we did, right? So I'll take that as a great compliment. There was a Marvel Legends figure with swappable arms to do like jacketed arms, I think, recently. And that's straight out of like, what we do with Ultimates and what we did with our Mean Gene flashbacks figure. I think we all inspire each other in this industry. And we're all friendly too, which is cool on top of it. So, it's really fun and on the inside, and there's a lot of fans who love toys, and we all buy stuff and spend too much money, and it inspires us and makes the product better.
Yeah. What is it? Rising tides lift all ships, lift all boats. Is that the saying?
That's what I say. That's what I say.
Hey, I mess it up a lot, so I'm glad I got it right. First go, let's go. But yeah, you mentioned Master of the Universe and how you were a fan of them, maybe growing up collected them and stuff like that. How was it for you to kind of integrate the WWE superstars into the Masters of the Universe?
It was one of the first things I suggested. We had zombies at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we just wanted to keep doing, like, it was called Trade Up. It was our Trade Up assortment. It was a price tier higher than basics, and a little bit different. And we explored a bunch of different things. And I was like, why don't we do this mashup? And then Dave Vonner at the time, he's like, let me show you something. And he showed me what he and his team had already been working for. And it was all these concepts of WWE superstars mashed up with Motu characters. And I think we showed some of those during our PowerCon panel a few years ago, some of those early sketches. And I heard through the grapevine, like that was part of like the year one when we were, Mattel was kind of pitching like we could do a Motu mashup, right? Motu is ours. We can mash that up. It's perfect. Just took a while for the stars to align, light and be allowed to do it, right? But the idea was kind of always there floating around. Then Billy, who was working on our team at the time, he was the one who actually got management approval and went through that process and managed a line for I think the first wave or so. And then I took over and have had the honor to work with Bill Beneke, legendary Bill Beneke, who's done DC Universe Classics and so many other like important collector lines and kids lines, and we've had a blast. Robert Rudman, a lot of input with his comic books and the copy on packaging, and great ideas for the line as well. And working with our partners at WWE, it's been great. Like, I don't know creatively how we're gonna ever like have this kind of satisfaction again. It's cool to mimic what we see in content, of course, like to recreate a figure of what a superstar looks like in real life, but it's a different creative element where you're taking two things you love and like taking various elements from them and making something really fun. That was that Masters line.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really fun to hear. Going kind of back to Elites and sort of the WWE and Mattel partnership. I would kind of want to get into a question. It's like, have there been figures that came out that you weren't expecting to be as good as they did coming out, like the final product? Were there ones where you're like, oh wow, that's actually really good, I didn't think it was going to be like going into production, seeing the render or something like that, and vice versa? Was there a figure that came out that you just weren't happy with that maybe you corrected in a future line?
That's tough because I mean there is so much, right? I mean, especially the fact that we're working from home. I'm getting multiple samples sent to me, and it's like I am drowning in toys now. It's like a blessing and a curse. So it's hard to keep track of a lot of that stuff. And really, it's just like once you do it and it's done, and you can't affect anything anymore, you mentally move on to the next. I of course have favorites. I mean, you said elites, but as an ultimate, like the Brock Lesnar really surprised me.
Oh yeah.
I knew that Brock Lesnar should have an ultimate. On paper, it didn't seem that exciting, right? Like he doesn't have flashy entrance gear. We're not going to do the swappable arms for posable entrance gear, no crazy deco. But like in hand, that figure was unbelievably cool. Like just a big, bulky, chunky figure with the added posability. So it's like sometimes things like that, it's like just like, you don't even realize how cool it's going to be until you get it in hand. You have to do it. It's going to be good, but then it's like really great when you get it in hand. And then other things, sometimes things just don't work out, whether it's like a head sculpt or something. And it doesn't turn out as intended. I think maybe that Mick Foley, that WrestleMania Mick Foley, when we ideated it and we saw the first renders, it was looking good. And then final production, it just didn't turn out as intended, and you can't stop the presses and not put out the WrestleMania wave because it wasn't exactly 100% as you creatively envisioned. So I think with our next Mick Foley, the ECW Ringside Cactus Jack, I think we nailed it. I think we more than made up for it with that figure, and that's all we can do is say, okay, we missed this one, we learned from it, and we're just kind of going to try to make it better next time.
So jumping into some fan questions, Steve, are you happy to answer some by the
yes,
fans?
of course.
The Stormhouse.
Of course.
Cool. Let's grab some up. So you guys sent over some questions over on Instagram at Nick Storm Review. So first questions come from Black Wolf Garage 96, and he says, will we ever see more ECW elites in the future? Maybe even Ultimate Editions?
It comes down to talent rights at the time. Weekly. We have weekly meetings where we discuss legendary talent with WWE. So as they become available to us, we will definitely incorporate them into the line. There are several. You mentioned Cactus Jack, Rob Van Dam. We'll continue to do as much as we can with those talents. We have titles that are available to us that we've been, slowly releasing, especially in recent memory. So we're going to push for more, of course. And as they become available, we're going to make the most out of, those new talent acquisitions.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. Next question comes from WSC_stage_creator, aka stage creator. Shout out Nathan. And he says, will we ever see some modern day playsets for crowdfunding, like a real scale ring or a cell or even a chamber or something like that?
I think that was the plan, right? Like prove that crowdfunding works, right? We made it happen. And now who knows what can happen next with that. We have the ring tooled up. I don't want to crowdfund a ring again. Like if we need to do a ring, we can offer that, maybe elsewhere through another retailer or something. But maybe there's a play set. Maybe there's a Hell in the Cell or steel cage or elimination chamber or a modern entrance or something. So yes, absolutely. The plan is to explore everything we can with properly scaled play sets, entrances, etc.
Cool. So yeah, so entrance stages and stuff like that are definitely on the kind of idea list. Cool. They're on the to-do list. Yeah. There you go, guys. Now you can stop whinging. All right. There you go. Next question comes from Boy Stratos. And pretty much what they're saying is, how possible is cloth accessories to be sort of like consistent and maybe just like outdo rubber accessories in the future?
I don't think it's possible because you have to balance your cost of a particular wave, So if everyone just came with soft goods, like it just wouldn't be sustainable, right? So we're going to do as much as we can when we can, but it's just, you have to be selective. You have to hit cost. You have to have a profitable line at the end of the day, and soft goods with every single figure instead of, other accessories or plastic accessories. It's not doable, unfortunately, but, we will include soft goods. I think it's preferred by a lot of collectors, of course, it's preferred by a lot of us, but, we just have to make things work, and it is what it is.
Yeah, so for what Ultimate Editions are, so we can kind of expect more like rubber accessories with the Ultimate Editions, because there is like a lot of sculpting that goes into those as well.
Yeah, that I mean that Bill in a lot of his Q&As, like when he makes decisions as well, cost of course is a factor, but then you have to think of the design elements of what would be soft goods, right?
Mhm.
And an Edge jacket, I mean, some of his jackets, especially the newer jackets, are incredibly elaborate, and that might not necessarily translate well to soft goods. So that's something else you have to consider on top of the cost factors. I guess I expose myself as a real Mattel marketer by talking about costs only first, but yeah, I mean the design elements, of course, you have to take that into consideration. I remember, like, I don't remember the specific figure, but I remember going to Bill and say, hey, could we please try to do this in soft goods instead? And he just showed me the details. He's like, we can't make this happen, and it's going to look much better in plastic. And he was right. It is much better in plastic. You get those great sculpted details. So it is, once again, it is what it is. We're going to make the best out of it. We'll try to make informed decisions. And maybe it's a balance. Maybe, I'll use Hulk Hogan as an example again. Maybe this upcoming Elite Hulk Hogan figure has a plastic shirt, but that just gives us an opportunity later for more Hulk Hogans, and we'll try to get a soft goods shirt with him down the line.
Great. Thank you so much for submitting that question. Next question, I think we have two coming in from Alex West Collects, and he says,
Oh, that guy.
"Oh, that
I'm
little
kidding.
guy.
I'm kidding. I love him. He's great.
He's a Hulkamaniac like you and I, Steve. But he asks, can you explain the process for body part choices? Is cost a factor?
Cost is a factor. Tooling cost is a factor, right? So we have a tooling budget for the year. So if we, let's just say a character like the Fiend comes along, right, who is all new tooling, and we weren't expecting it, we might have to reshuffle some things around and change plans, because you have to do that new character, and they do demand those new parts. So, I mean, the tooling plays a role, but I don't think like actual cost of the figure, like producing the figure, I don't think that affects body part choices as much. I think it's just compatibility, because not all parts are compatibility or are compatible, or at least that's what our partners, our engineer partners, might tell us there. I know some customizers make things work, but there might be compatibility issues with assembly. There might be issues with finding older tooling. I know people say this exists. The tooling might not exist anymore. Right, like some of that stuff that they're referring to is over 10 years old at this point, so it just might be gone at this point. So is the tool available? Do we need to tool something new? Are the parts compatible? Licensor considerations. A licensor can say, hey, this guy doesn't have enough abs, give him more abs, and we have to do it, right? Yeah. So there's a lot to consider there when developing and choosing part choices for particular figures.
Yeah, and Alex also goes on to say, why are some torsos chosen when better options are available? Example, the Elite 91 Hogan with the Hall of Fame torso.
I can't get into specifics on that, because obviously I'm not the designer, so I don't know why. I don't know if it's just choice. Maybe Bill thinks that's the better build for Hogan towards the end of his career. I have seen some comments. People wanted the younger Hogan torso for him. I don't fitting. I don't think that's particularly perfect of a choice either. So Bill made his choices there, and I don't know if there was anything deeper, from a Hulk Hogan approvals perspective or a parts availability perspective. I don't have that insight, because I'm not involved every step of the way with design. Could just be Bill's choice, period, right? Not to throw him under the bus, but he has to make these decisions, and maybe he just thinks that's the best choice. But if Alex or anybody else thinks there's a better choice, by all means, there, I'll probably see it, and we can at least talk about it on our end. It might not happen. There might be a reason to use that torso. I don't know, but I love hearing everyone's opinions and input on how to better the figures.
Great, yeah. Thank you, Alex, for putting that in. And yeah, you brought up Bill McKenna. Maybe you can put in a good word for me. You can come on, come on to Chatting Up a Storm. Who knows?
I think he's quite happy, being at home, working from home, and hiding and just making his action figures and doing his Japanese puzzles.
Yeah, as any sane man would. Let's be honest.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And last question here comes from alflex_collector, and they ask, are there any existing toolings that can be remade to be improved? I think this is another Bill question. He goes on to say knee pads slash titles slash torsos, etc.
I think you would just need something all new, right? You would just need to retool something instead of like changing something. So if there's something existing that we need to fix, of course we want to fix it. A head or something that's problematic, but maybe at its base, like there's something there that could be salvaged. Maybe you resculpt it and do a new tool of it. Maybe some titles can use some revamping. Myself in particular, I would love a new Winged Eagle title, but we'll see. Of course, once again, tooling budgets have to be considered there, right? Do we use that to tool a new Winged Eagle title, or does the character get a new head, right? Or does he get a new entrance jacket or something? So we need to be smart about that. But if there's a true problem, yes, of course, we want to fix it and improve the tooling.
Great. Thank you guys so much for submitting those questions. You can find me at Nick Storm Review on Instagram if you want to submit questions in the future for a future guest. That kind of brought me to, I don't know, I was kind of thinking of like the personalities, like YouTube personalities being figures and stuff. What's the possibility of maybe a Steve Ozer figure or a Bill McKenna figure?
Well, there's Bill's figure made it onto a poster already. He got an anniversary figure as Bill as a referee.
Oh yeah, I remember that actually.
Yep. So he has one. So I think he's satisfied. I'm not going to fight if somebody wants to put my head in an action figure as a referee or security guard or someone selling popcorn. I'd be happy. But
a Comic-Con exclusive 3-pack. You, Bill, Rob, boom. Seller right there.
We need an A-lister in there, like maybe Gargano from the Elite Squad to actually sell some units. I think you do see it from time to time, and I know I mentioned Scott Knightlick, or maybe that was just between you and I personally, but I'm a fan of what Scott did back in the day, and he was very innovative, and he got ahead on an action figure, and I know he got some grief about that, but it's pretty common. A lot of the old GI Joe figures were based on the sculptors. I know my good friend David Vonner has a few figures with his likeness on it. Just kind of happens when you need someone generic. You might as well just, instead of just making up a face, you just, okay, I can use my own face, or I can use one of my coworkers' faces, and it's free, and we'll do it. And it's like a little homage to the hard work that we do. So I'm not going to fight it. It's not something I push for, to not seem like I have a huge ego or something. But if someone said, hey, Steve, we need to scan you for something real quick, I'm not going to say no to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Because we brought up referee figures or something like that, having like your likeness or my likeness or something like that. I believe Squared Circle Toys has their like kind of crowdfund, kind of backstage figures going on, and I believe Dan is actually like one of the like yellow staff guys, which is kind of cool, and a little Easter egg there, which is really cool. But yeah, thank you again, guys, for sending in all those questions.
Let's plug Dan.
Yeah.
Let's plug Dan.
Dan
is great. He does a lot of great work in this industry. He's an unsung hero of wrestling figures for sure. You probably own tons of his work already, and you just don't even know it. And these figures are something. I mean, I know I get tons of questions about more referees or security guards or world building type figures. So it's like, please support Dan's Kickstarter. I posted in my stories links to it all the time. Do you have his account info? The Squared Circle?
I do. Yeah, I'm actually going to put it in the top thing in the description to make sure it gets campaigned, because I want it so bad.
Yeah, please check out that campaign. Follow Squared Circle Toys. Give Dan some love, because it's what a lot of us have asked for, and now's our chance, right? And these Kickstarter executions are great ways to make things happen that we never thought were possible before. So check that out at the very least, and consider it, because I for one would love to have an arena set up with legit security guard figures and classic referees and modern referees and the whole 9 yards.
Cool, great. Yeah, that again will be in the link in the description. Go follow Squared Circle Toys on Instagram and all the social medias. But Steve, I want to thank you so much for doing this again. Really wish you could be in person sometime. I'm I may hopefully make our way down to the US and A maybe next year, year after. So hopefully I get to see you at a Ringside Fest or a Comic-Con or something like that.
WrestleMania is going to be in Hollywood pretty soon, so maybe
Yeah.
that's your moment.
There it is. That's my Hollywood moment right there. WrestleMania
Exactly.
moment even. Yeah. But again, thank you for coming on here, spending your hour with me through all the internet issues. We got it. We got there in the end. But thanks again for coming on, and I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Sweet. So where can they find you? We'll roll out the red carpet. Where can they find you on socials and everything like that? Where do you want to be found?
On Instagram at Action Figure Attack. On Twitter, Action Fig Attack. And on the Ringside forums, of course, there's a Q&A with me, which I check frequently and answer as much as I, possibly can without getting in trouble.
Sweet. Awesome. Again, Steve, thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye. And then we end it. Yeah! Woo!
Nick Stone, the Australian icon.